already saying this isn't going to work. The big networkers are saying you're not charging people any money. How are we going to make the big dollars? Network marketing is looking at us, kind of scratching their heads, saying, you know, how in the world are they putting all these people in the room? They haven't even started it. They haven't even started pre-launch yet. There's not even a published comp plan. What are they doing? And I can tell you, it's the culture. It's the foundation. You see, I believe, and this is my core belief, and so therefore it will, you know, be put into the culture of the company. Because if I'm leading the ship, this is going to be the culture. And that is, we build people, we don't build money. We build people. Yeah. Because if you build people, people will always build the business. If you build the man will always build the business. And in the last 15 years in network marketing, they've got it turned around. Right. Okay? They got it turned around. It's about the money, the money, the money, the money, the money, money. And companies go crazy. They go, woo! And they go sign up Robert Dean into every single deal they got. And then it goes through the roof and then it dies. And that's not the kind of company I want to be. Look at the big companies. Now, I come from Amway. Say what you want to say about it. Shaquille O'Neal, when he got drafted to the NBA, 3 years after he gave me the $100, he calls me and he says, "You're never going to believe whose office I'm in." I said, "Whose? Rich DeVos?" He said, "Yeah. Rich DeVos is the founder of Amway. He owns the Orlando Magic. He wrote Shaquille O'Neal a check for $27 million. He said, "You didn't tell me this is what this Amway thing was." So the ones that have done it right, Amway, Herbalife, New Skin. Where's my Mary Kay lady? Mary Kay, done it right. Why? Because you built people. You built people. People came before the sign-up fee. People came before the upfront money. People came before the body shop. People came before the crime scene. Right, Raj? People came before the hook and the crook. People came before the overpromise and the underdeliver. People came before, you know, the slick-tongued, you know, guy in front of the room telling you can make a lot of money and that he's moral and that he loves God and then he's trying to sleep with every married woman in the room. People came before. Everybody know that guy? I know that guy. People came before that guy. And when you put the people first, here's what I know. You'll never have to chase money. Money will always chase you. Right. But if you put the money first, you will always, you will be one of these guys they call the big guys, and you are chasing the money, and you're in a different company every 24 months. You have no stability. You're the brokest rich guy on the block, because now you have this lifestyle that you have to show. Everything's financed. Everything's going back to the bank if your check gets cut off tomorrow. That's the state of network marketing today. And here's what Art Williams said. Doc talked about Art Williams. I was never in A.O. Williams. I always thought that Amway was a lot easier than A.O. Williams because you had to actually sell something in A.O. Williams, right? You actually had to sell insurance. Amway, you just had to buy the toothpaste. And people, they couldn't figure it out. My mom said, "Jason, this Glister toothpaste, it tastes like chalk." I said, "No, Mom, it tastes like money." Just kept brushing my teeth. But they couldn't figure it out, Doc. But I looked at Art Williams, and every time he'd come to New Orleans, I'd sneak into the meeting. Because I sat at that man's feet. I often said that Bill Britt and Art Williams, they shared the same brain. Because everything that came out of their mouth was the same. They delivered it a little bit different, but the message was the same. If you'd seen it written down on paper, the message was the same. And here's what Art said, never forget, it was 2 o'clock in the morning. We're sitting at the Hilton Hotel. Mike, where you stayed last weekend, we're sitting at the Hilton Hotel in a little corner at the night owl, after the night owl, after the night owl, and there's 9 people there, and boy, Art's sitting in his chair, drinking some iced tea, sweet iced tea from Cairo, Georgia, and there he is talking about a dream. And he said this, and I'll never forget it. He said, in order to make it as not only a company, but a movement. Companies come and go. Movements never go away. Amway's a movement. Mary Kay's a movement. Herbalife became a movement. New Skin became a movement. Primerica became a movement. He said, here's what you got to have. He said, you got to have a dream. Your people have to have a dream. You got to talk about it. You can't be afraid to talk about it. You got to give them an opportunity, as Ephraim talked about, to have a better life than they had the last 5 years. You got to have a dream. Bible says, man without vision shall perish. Yes. Right? Yes. Another version says he will cast off all restraint. That's pretty harsh. Right? If you don't have a dream, your body is just waiting to die. Okay? So we're going to bring that dream back into people's lives. People told me, well, Jason, stop talking about Amway talk. Stop talking about a dream. Stop talking about a vision. Stop talking about God. Stop talking about all those things. That's old. People don't want to hear that no more. Guess what? People are sick and tired of the money game. They want to hear that again. They want certainty again. They want something real again. So here's what he said. He said you got to have a dream. He said you got to have a cause bigger than you. As you heard Roger talk, Doc talk, Ephraim talk, Mike talk, as you hear the leadership in this company talk, our cause is about helping the little guy. Because as Roger says, my favorite, he's got a lot of great quotes, but my favorite is, all big is a whole lot of little. And if you help the little guy, I have big network marketers tell me this is never going to work. Well, why not? Because you got to feed the big guy. If you feed the big guy, the little guys will always follow. Yeah, that's exactly what you said in the last 19 companies you've been in. Right? They fed you and there was no money left to pay the little guy. That's why you're in another company every 18 months. If you take care of the masses of people, as Maximus says in Gladiator, Mike, if you win the crowd, you will win your freedom. In order to live and dine with the classes, you got to serve who? Not the classes, you serve the masses of people. So you got to have a cause. That's our cause. To bring back the American dream into people's lives. To bring back the truth into people's lives. But the last thing he said, it's the only time I've ever heard it, he and Bill Britt both said it right around the same time. He said you got to have an enemy. He used football analogy, and I'm a big football fan. He was a high school football coach. He became a billionaire. His dream was the same. All right, his vision, his cause, okay, was to educate people on their finances. But his enemy was New York Life and Prudential, and people thought he was nuts. Yeah. This little football coach is going to go up against the two biggest insurance financial companies in the whole world. They said he was crazy. They laughed at him. They called him a lunatic. Governmental agencies were all over him because they were in bed with New York Life and Prudential. But he kept waking up every day and fighting the good fight. And 6 years into that company, Doc, he wrote more insurance with people like Doc Lee than New York Life and Prudential all put together. Woo! Why did he do it? Because he had a cause and he had an enemy. And he used football, and he said, who would go to a football, who would go watch the Texans play or the Cowboys play if it was just them, there was no opposing team?
Oh, really?
Nobody, right? The game is fun because there's somebody out there for you to beat, who's telling you you're crazy, who's the critic, who doesn't count, but it's the man in the arena, right? It's the man that's actually doing it. But everybody's going to criticize what we do, which is exactly the way I want it, which is exactly how we're going to win and shock the world. You see little David? Little David, they called him a shepherd boy. He used to protect the flock from the lions and the bears for his father, Jesse, and he had 7 brothers. He was the smallest and the youngest of the 7 brothers. And this giant Goliath came about. He was a Philistine, and they're in this valley called Elah. And in order for the Israelites to get to the promised land, they got to come from the mountain through the valley, through the Philistines, to get to the promised land. But nobody wants to fight Goliath. Why? He's 9 feet 6 inches tall. He's Shaquille O'Neal on steroids. He's got body armor that weighs 200 pounds, covered from head to toe. And none of the brothers want to fight Goliath. But little David said, I'll fight him. And he goes to his father and says, you're crazy. He goes to King Saul. He says, King Saul, I want to fight him. He says, well, you're going to die. He says, no, I'm not. He said, I got the power of the Almighty God behind me. Let me fight him, King Saul. And King Saul didn't want to let him fight. But finally, David persisted. He kept knocking on the door. He kept showing up. And King Saul said, well, if you're going to fight him, why don't you take my armor? And David said, I don't need it. And he reached down, looking at Goliath. He never took his eyes off of him, and he picked up 5 stones out of the brook. And they said, David, you're going to die. He's too big to fight. He said, no, he's too big to miss. Give me some rocks. And he didn't need 5. He needed 1. And he hit him smack dab in the head. He hit the ground. He went and cut his head off, took his head into Jerusalem. But before he did it, Goliath was mouthing off, saying all of these things, defying God. And David looked at him and said, you uncircumcised Philistine who defies the God of Israel, who defies the almighty living God. I killed the lion, I killed the bear, and now I'm going to kill you. Ooh. We're David in this deal.
Come on.
And there are a lot of Goliaths. There are a lot of great companies. But we want to be the greatest company with the greatest people, the greatest comp plan. We will make mistakes. We already have. We will do things that are stupid. Mike reminds me of that every day. But the only way to fail is to quit. And the opposite of success is not failure, it's quitting. John Maxwell has a new book. It's called Sometimes You Win and Sometimes You Learn. And if you make a decision that you're going to win, and you're going to do whatever it takes to get there, and you focus on what you're going to do every single day, because success, it doesn't happen in a day, but it's a daily thing. It's what you do daily that determines where your life ends up. It's not what you do weekly or monthly, but you live a life the way that you live your days. And so if you'll make a decision today that you want to win, we're going to do everything in our power with God's help to help you win, to provide the foundation for a long-term business. Now I want to close with this. How much time do I have? Am I way over? Anybody? Well, that's a good man, Ephraim McDaniel. Ephraim McDaniel does not like network marketing. He loves network marketing. I'm going to give you, and this is a little bit of teaching, but I think this is important. Because, I went to Chicago, and Jerome and Nancy, Ephraim, we call them Gerancy, okay? So Jerome and Nancy in Chicago, they're like, well, you didn't do any teaching on what it takes to win. We get it. Great company, great people, great product, free comp plan when you get in, the whole deal. But what does it really take to win? You made millions of dollars. What did you do to get there? That's what we want to hear. And Ephraim and Doc, probably two of the greatest teachers. Look, as my dad says, son, I know people. I've been around the world to Arkansas twice. I know people, right? I've seen every great trainer in network marketing. These are two of the very, very best that you will ever see sitting in this room. And you got both of them. One in Dallas, one in Houston to go take over the world, which is awesome. Give them a big hand. But when you leave here today, whether you do this business or not, okay, we want you to leave Infinity Global better than the way that you came. Whether you ever build it or not, whether you ever go out and make money and become a diamond or a crown or a triple ripple, fudge ripple, whatever it's going to be called. Okay, if you'll just follow these things in life, you can win in whatever you do. Now, we just so happen, as Ephraim talks about, to have the right horse. But if something happens you don't want to get on our horse, we wish you the very best, because see, when you win in network marketing, we all win. You see, some people, they have a scarcity mentality. They think if somebody wins over here in Visalis, it means that, that there's a pie, and that pie is only so big. And if this guy gets a bigger piece of the pie, that means mine has to be smaller. But you see, what we know is there's an unlimited pie, and you got a knife, and you can cut off as big a piece as you want. But it starts with the reason why. It starts with the dream. It starts with what's going to put gas in that engine every single day. I walked into my first ever network marketing meeting, other than the meeting in my house. My sponsor, Mark Dean, sat down with me, and he said, I will make you a millionaire in 3 years if you'll do everything I tell you to do. The moment you don't do what I tell you to do, the bet's off. That was a Tuesday night that he told me that. Came over Monday, met again on Tuesday, and he said, I said, okay, I'll do whatever it takes. I looked him in the eye, I shook his hand, I said, I'm in. He said, we're going to Winston-Salem, North Carolina on Thursday. I said, what country is that in? He said, we're going to get on a bus. We're going to go 22 hours, and we're going to go learn how to get rich. I said, Mark, in case you didn't notice, his dad was the athletic director at LSU at the time, Joe Dean Ephraim. Remember Joe? So Joe was the athletic director. And I said, Mark, in case you haven't noticed, LSU's playing Alabama Saturday. You ain't missed a game since you were 2. My dad's the announcer in the stadium. I ain't missed a game since I was 2. We're not going to North Carolina. It must be the next weekend, right? He said, Jason, never give up what you've always wanted for what you want right now. Success happens because of delayed gratification, not in a microwave. It happens in a slow cooker. Ever taken a chicken from the store, put it in the microwave, and tried to cook it and eat it? It tastes terrible, right? Because true success has to marinate and saturate to become great. And I said, I got to think about that. He said, well, just remember, if you don't come, the bet's off. If you don't come, enjoy school and enjoy working for 40 more years. And I went home and I really had to think about it. But it kept hitting me. Don't give up what you've always wanted for what you want right now. And I went and got on that bus. It was the most awful experience of my entire life up to that point. The bus broke down. It took 28 hours instead of 22 to get there. On the side of the road for 6 hours with this guy that couldn't fix an engine like you paid him to. And we finally get to this meeting, and it's a bunch of positive, crazy. I felt like a Southern Baptist convention. Okay, now I'm not a Southern Baptist, but I'm Catholic. If you're from South Louisiana, you got to be Catholic at least once. Okay, but it was a bunch of positive people saying, "Ain't it great?" and "Yeehaw!" and everybody's all excited, and the whole weekend. It was couples. It seemed like they're all from North Carolina, which is where Bill Britt was from. Hi, I'm Ethel, and this is my husband, Ferd, and our last name is Gog and Boggle, and we've been in for 3 years, and we rich. And they just kept bringing and I'm like, I can't bring anybody. This is terrible. But then on Saturday night, a guy got up on the stage. His name was Bill Britt. And it's the first time, Doc, I'd ever heard anybody talk like this. And he got up and he said, the beginning of brilliance is admitting that you're stupid. I said, that's kind of rude. But it's true. He said, some of you in here have more degrees than a thermometer. He said, but if I make more money sleeping till noon on Monday than you make all year, when it comes to making money, one of us is stupid. You've got all the degrees. You figure out who it is. I said, that's pretty rude, but that's real good. And he kept talking like that for 3 hours. And this is what he taught me. He said, you got to have a big reason why. Then you got to figure out, what are you willing to do to get it? What are you really willing to do? Pittsburgh Steelers won 4 Super Bowls in the 1970s. Terry Bradshaw grew up in Louisiana, a friend of my dad's. And he said, Terry, what was it about, how'd y'all do that? You had great players, but great coach and Chuck Noll, but how did you do it? He said, excuses were not accepted if you were a Pittsburgh Steeler. In fact, in our locker room, we had this huge banner, and it said the goal is to win. The plan is to do whatever it takes. You see, I've seen a lot of people rise from failure to success. I've never seen anybody rise from excuses to success. Okay? Excuses are made by losers. It's the skin of a lie stuffed with a reason on why you can't. Don't tell me you can't. If I can, you can. If Doc Lee can, if Ephraim can, you can. If Michael can, you can. You can. If Sunshine can, you can. So take the can't, remove it from your vocabulary. Every dictionary I've ever had in my house since I was 18 years old, I would rip out 2 pages. The page that had can't on it and the page that had quit on it. I'd rip it out of the dictionary. For you couldn't find it in my dictionary because they're the brokest words in the English language. So what are you willing to do to get it? What are you willing to give up to get it? And is it really worth it to you? Think on these things. Anybody ever heard of the book Think and Grow Rich? What's the first word of that? Yeah, some of you will get that the way I'm too. So anyway, why and what? Third thing. Are you willing to fail? Because in life, I was taught that failure was defeat. In life, I was taught that an F on a test is a very bad thing. In life, I was taught that if you fail the class, you've got to repeat the class and repeat the grade. I had to have a special education teacher teach me how to read. I was very slow. All right? I didn't make good grades. I sat down with my high school guidance counselor and I said, what do my test scores qualify me for? She says, it doesn't look good. I said, well, how bad is it? She says, well, I don't even know if you want to know this. I said, give it to me. She says, well, you basically qualified to become a carnival ride operator. So I knew I was better than that. I got to college. Thank God, because I knew the athletic director. But anyway, so are you willing to fail? Are you willing to keep falling down until you win? Because the only way you fail is if you quit. And success in this business and in life, if you're an entrepreneur, is based on massive, massive failure. There's no such thing as an overnight success. People say, you came out of nowhere. Well, where were you 10 years ago when I was working 90, 100 hours a week? I didn't come out of nowhere. Nobody came out of nowhere. Anybody know a guy named Michael Jordan? Anybody ever heard of him? Yeah. So Michael Jordan got cut his sophomore year of high school. Anybody ever heard that story? He was 5'6". Most people don't know that. He was 5'6". They asked him, Michael, what was it like, not playing basketball your sophomore year? He said, I played more basketball my sophomore year than I did my entire life. I went to the YMCA. I started playing with people that were bigger than me, taller than me, stronger than me. I started associating around the right people who made me better, because people worse than me can't make me better. They're only going to make me worse. Because when you dance with the devil don't change. The devil changes you. So Michael Jordan kept playing. And he grew from 5'6" to 6'2" in 12 months. And he came back as a junior. And he did really well. Then he grew from 6'2" to 6'6" as a senior. But what did he do? He failed. His dad said that he sat in his room for 24 hours and cried when he didn't make that team, and his father walked into his room and said, Michael, you got a choice. You got a choice. You can go learn how to become a musician or play the guitar or go work in a factory or do what I'm doing. You got a choice. But right now, your face is in the mud. But character is built when your face is in the mud. You got a choice. And what did Michael Jordan choose to do? Most people would have quit. But he kept playing. You see, he did the sowing. I believe God did the growing. That's all he could control, right? He started playing harder than he ever played in his life, and then God took care of the rest, and then bam, there he was, getting off the airplane, drafted third by the Chicago Bulls. And he gets off the airplane, and he walks out, and there's no limo. And he's looking around, he's like, what an awesome welcome. I'm the third pick in the draft, and there's no limo. The guy that was supposed to pick up Michael Jordan that day did not show up for work, and he didn't call. And there was a guy sitting there named George in a limousine. And George worked for another limo company. And George also had somebody that day he was supposed to pick up that never showed up. And George had a decision to make. Do I go home and lay in the sun and lick my wounds? Or do I stay and try to pick up another ride? George sat there for 3 hours that day waiting for somebody to come out, and lo and behold, Michael Jordan walks out of the airport. And he's a huge basketball fan, and he sees him, and Michael's just sitting on the bench wondering, what the heck am I going to do? It's before cell phones, Ephraim. And George gets out of his car, walks up to him and says, you're Michael Jordan. He says, yeah, my ride's not here. He says, well, I'm your ride, free of charge. I'll take you wherever you want to go. And they start talking, and they become friends. And he gives him his card, and he says, Michael, you want to know where to eat? You want to know good people to meet? You want to know where to live? I am your guy. I will help you do this free of charge. And he gives him his card. Doesn't hear from Michael Jordan for 3 weeks. And 3 weeks later, George's phone rings. George, this is Mike. Who? This is Mike. You picked me up the other day at the airport. Mike? Michael. This is Michael Jordan. Oh, Michael Jordan. Yeah. George, my parents are coming in from North Carolina. Is there any way you could go pick them up at the airport? Man, you bet. And he picked up the parents. The parents fell in love with George. They went to see Michael. They invited George over for dinner. And 30 years later, 7 businesses later, becoming a multi-millionaire later, George is Michael Jordan's best friend on earth. Why? Because he showed up. Who's ever heard 90% of life is just showing up? Yes. So I showed up at that meeting. I'll close with this, I promise. Bill Britt talked. I was fired up. Then he said, you need to come tomorrow morning and really learn the secret. So at 10 o'clock, I showed up that morning, and my life changed forever. Some of you know what I'm talking about. I thought he was going to talk about how to draw better circles, or how to win in business. He did, but he talked about winning on a whole nother level. But then Sunday afternoon is where it really all came together. And they brought up a guy on the stage, and my sponsor was smart. He put me, Tiffany, on the very front row. And a guy named Les Brown walked out on the stage. Anybody know who that is? Sweats a little bit like T.D. Jakes. Y'all know T.D. Jakes? And there's Les Brown. Never heard of him. I'd never heard a motivational seminar in my entire life. Okay, I grew up going to a Catholic church. You talked about passing the offering plate, Mike? Anybody ever been to a football game? Anybody ever seen him do the wave? You know, how the wave goes? That didn't start in football. That started in the Catholic Church. When the guy, the usher came with the plate, and the first dude said, "Whoa, not me, Jack. Whoa!" And it went all the way through the church. I saw it. I was an altar boy. I could see the whole thing. That's a true story. I'm telling you. Not gonna get this anywhere else. But anyway, so here's Les Brown. And Les Brown comes out on stage, and lo and behold, Les Brown, he did these same things, okay? But he added a fifth one. He said, you gotta get hungry. And he said, the message of my talk is if I can do it, you can do it. You see, I was adopted with a twin brother, and he was called the smart twin, I was called the dumb twin, and we were born in an abandoned office building in Miami, Florida. And a lady named Mamie Brown already had 6 kids, adopted us, took her into her family. We were poor, we were on food stamps, we ate government cheese. We didn't have a shot to make anything in life. In fact, when I was in the 4th grade, I was labeled educationally mentally retarded. I could not read and I could not write. He said in 8th grade, I made it through the Miami school system, and in 8th grade, my teacher, Mr. Robinson, said, I want you to write your name on the board. He said, I can't do that, sir. I'm educationally mentally retarded. I can't read or write. He said, Les Brown, I never want to hear those words come out of your mouth again. You are the child of a king who counted every hair on your head and put you to be above and not beneath, who made you the head and not the tail, and greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. And he taught him how to read. And he taught him how to write. And he told him that the #1 gift that God will ever give you is the ability to dream. And Les Brown wrote his vision down on tablets. And he wanted to be a radio DJ. Because he loved music. He loved the star. He loved listening to Gladys Knight and James Brown. And his dream was just to be a DJ at the largest radio station in all of Miami. So when he was 17 years old, he got on his bicycle one day and he rode over to the radio station and he knocked on the door. The owner of the radio station was a guy named Mr. Butterball. And he came to the door. He said, "Yes, sir, young man." He says, "My name is Les Brown and I'm here for a job." "Well, do you have any experience in radio, son?" "No, sir." "Have you ever sold anything before?" "No, sir." "Have you ever been a DJ before?" "No, sir." "Do you have a record player?" "Yes, sir." "Well, that doesn't qualify you. Go home, boy." And Les Brown rode his bike to the radio station again the next day. And he knocked on the door. Mr. Butterball came out. "Boy, I thought I told you we didn't have any jobs." He said, "Thought somebody might have quit, Mr. Butterball." "Nobody quit. Go home, boy." Came back the next day. "Mr. Butterball, my name's Les Brown. I'm here for a job." "Boy, I thought I told you nobody quit." "Thought somebody might have gotten fired, Mr. Butterball." "Nobody quit. Nobody got fired. Go home, boy." And he came back the next day. "My name's Les Brown. I'm here for a job." "Boy, I thought I told you nobody quit. Nobody got fired." "Thought somebody might have died, Mr. Butterball." "Nobody quit. Nobody got fired. Nobody died. Go home, boy." And he came back the next day. "My name's Les Brown. I'm here for a job." They slammed the door in his face. He came back the next day. "My name's Les Brown. I'm here for a job." Sometimes he would see Mr. Butterball. Sometimes he wouldn't. He would tell the janitor, "My name's Les Brown. I'm here for a job." He would tell the receptionist, "My name's Les Brown. I'm here for a job." He would tell the DJs as they're walking through the office, as he's just sitting there waiting, "My name's Les Brown. I'm here for a job." After 2.5 months, every single day, he kept going back. He kept knocking on the door, because knock and the door shall be opened. Ask and you shall receive. Give and it shall be given unto you. And he kept knocking and knocking and knocking. And finally, Mr. Butterball comes out with a smile on his face. He says, "Let me guess, your name is Les Brown and you are here for a job." "Yes, sir, my name's Les Brown, I'm here for a job." He said, "You gonna keep coming around here, boy?" He said, "Yes, sir, because my name's Les Brown, I'm here for a job." "Why don't you go get me something to eat?" And Les Brown became the runner for Mr. Butterball. And then he started picking up the acts that he had watched as a child as they would come in and do concerts. He said, "But every chance I got, I would sit in that control room and I would watch the way that the DJs would move their hands. I would listen to the inflections in their voice, and I would go home and I would practice and I would practice and I would practice." And then all of a sudden one Saturday morning, my opportunity came. Because there was only one DJ on a Saturday and I went in early. He said, "I always went in early, I always stayed late. I was hungry." And the DJ's name was Rock. And Rock was an alcoholic. Rock had been drinking all night. Rock had been drinking John Daniels all night. Now, I know it's Jack Daniels, but when you've known him as long as Rock, you can call him John. And I took that fifth of John Daniels. Rock was about to pass out, and I said, "Drink, Rock, drink." And all of a sudden, Rock passes out. And I get on the phone. I call Mr. Butterball. "Rock has passed out. He is drunk. He is not waking up. What shall I do?" He says, "Boy, get on that list and call every DJ on that list. You know how to spin the records?" "Yes, sir, Mr. Butterball." He said, "Don't you get on that air or you are fired." "Yes, sir, Mr. Butterball." He said, "I picked up that phone. I didn't call any DJs. I picked up that phone. I called my mama. I called my girlfriend, Cassandra. I said, 'Get out on the porch and turn your radio on because I'm about to be on the air.' And I grabbed that microphone. And I said, 'My name is M.E.L.B. Triple P Les Brown. I'm your potter playing papa. There was none before me. There will be none after me. Therefore I am the one and only. I'm certified, bona fide, and unduly qualified to bring you satisfaction, a whole lot of action. I'm young and single, and I love to mingle. So look out, baby, I'm your love man.'" And as he sweat all over the front row, he said, "I was hungry." What happened with Les Brown? He made $70 million telling people that story. Telling people who were told they can't that they could. Why? Because he didn't give up. He figured out what he wanted. He figured out he was willing to do whatever. It didn't matter how many people who told him no. And he showed up and he was hungry. God bless you guys. Bring up Mr. Doctor.